Okay, the lecture this week is on Jorge Luis Borges' Library of Babel. Borges himself was a library director in South America. And if you've ever been to a library, you know that books, thousands and thousands of books gathered in one place, has this ominous aura, or has a specific aura to itself. You feel like the books, when you spend lots of time in the library, are talking to you. And this short story, which is just 8 pages long, is about this universe that is comprised of one single double helix library, an infinite library. That's how Borges starts his short story, that the world is this library and the people in the world are researchers in the library. The books are comprised of certain letters in different patterns, and none of the books make any sense at all. All these letters and numbers are randomly placed. The researchers, or the people of the world, go from one hexagon to another in search of meaning. So this could be an analogy of the modern condition of human beings being thrust in this world of senseless infinitude and searching for meaning, searching for something that could make sense of this random chaos. And so the approach of the people toward this library life is very different. Some of the researchers lose hope and they jump out of the library in an act of suicide, it seems. Some others have developed a cult and have made some sort of a sense of the patterns, algorithms, rhythms, and they claim to have found the meaning. And so you can find parallels of this in the real world as well, where people claim to have the meaning of the universe and creating cults and cultures around it. There are those who spend their whole lives poring over books and not giving up. There are those who resort to despair. So there are many different approaches to this universe library. And the idea of having it in the shape of a double helix is very interesting, because this was written in modern times, but still the shape of the DNA maybe wasn't exactly explicit at the time. And so this idea of something being very infinite and large like the universe compared to something very small like the DNA structure or the molecular structure. If you remember the term fractals, it reminds us of that, the fact that there are certain shapes and patterns that are repeated in the universe. For example, the shape of the stars, the shape of ripples on the water, the shape of sands and stones. So small shapes and huge shapes, they kind of mirror one another and repeat in the universe. And the fractals is something that Borges uses in his short story, the fact that he compares something so large as the whole universe to something that's small like the DNA structure or molecular structures. So he is building parallels between the world of science and the world of letters, literature. Something else that he's referencing is the idea of the sublime. And if you remember, sublime is the concept of when we stand in front of something that's larger than our imagination can fathom, we kind of hear the break in our mind. We kind of that sense of that second that is, this is so unimaginable. And there's sublime in numbers. For example, when we think about the number infinity, it's hard for us to imagine and grasp it. There's sublime in nature when we stand somewhere and gaze at the huge, for example, canyons, or something very large and serene and beautiful, but not threatening, because we need to be thinking. So it's a cognitive act to understand sublime. If we are threatened, for example, by the ocean, like there are large waves coming our way, then that sensation isn't sublime, it's one of fear. But sublime is a cognitive ability that Kant actually mentions, that some human beings have the ability to imagine what they cannot actually imagine. In this. So another concept that we talk about with regards to this short story is the sublime, and Borges is referencing it. And what do human beings do when they're faced with concepts that are larger than our finite brains can understand? And what is our reaction to ambiguity? And so what literature does is create that source of ambiguity tolerance for us, that we are faced with questions that we cannot solve. For example, what is the meaning of life? What is this chaos? What is this pain? What are all these enigmas? And so the reaction of some of the researchers is despair, while others keep on searching, although they know that there has been no red hexagon ever found, red hexagon where the meaning of all these nonsense would be, that mystery would be solved. So they know, maybe they know that there is no red hexagon, but they still keep on searching. So a comparison can be made. For example, there's a poem that so beautifully captures this. It says that, well, it's in translation, but it says that, well, maybe our task isn't to decipher the meaning of the red rose. Maybe our purpose is to just revel in its beauty. So there are many different approaches to this mystery. We can tear the rose apart and put it under a microscope, try to understand exactly what it is, which is a valid task in itself, a scientific approach. But at the same time, are we going to solve its mystery, or can we appreciate it as it is with its enigma? So that sort of ambiguity tolerance is always encouraged, especially in the works of Borges. And he has a sort of a Kabbalistic worldview. And as you know, Kabbalism, it means that he uses tales from the Old Testament and kind of puts a modern twist on them. And the Library of Babel is from the ancient Tower of Babel. It references that. And Tower of Babel, as you know, after the flood, the whole world is destroyed. And only one ship survives. Okay, this is ancient myth and also in the Old Testament. So Noah's ship, right? And finally they reach land. And this ship creates what remains of humanity, are all those people. And they all speak one language, and they're living together peacefully until they become arrogant, according to the ancient tale. And they build this tower, this huge tower that reaches the sky. And the purpose of building this tower is to reach God. So Pharaoh apparently goes on top of the tower, draws an arrow, hits God, but the arrow comes back and kills him, and his blood spills on the land, and people become divided. No longer they speak one language, and the cause of all the war and mayhem that follows is because they no longer speak one language, which is metaphorically saying that they cannot communicate to one another. So the Library of Babel and the Tower of Babel kind of have this intertextuality, this connection, that there is that kind of lack of communication, that sense of unison and being united and being at home and belonging to somewhere safe is destroyed, is shattered. That sense of community is shattered. And instead we have miscommunication, we have a lack of understanding about ourselves and about the world, and all the different reactions. So what you have to do is, after reading the short story, you're going to see if any part of this text piques your curiosity. If you can have a question, come up with a question and answer your personal question through a paragraph, just post it on the forum and reply to 2 of your peers' posts, as I have outlined on eClass, and you're going to be done. Thank you.